same energy, yeah. Keep your same energy, keep the same energy, yeah. Keep the same energy, You ain't gotta like me, no. You ain't gotta like me, no.
Hey, what's up, Reballers? How's it going? I'm glad we are back. Sperleezy's with me. How you doing, man?
Doing great, man. How you doing?
Good. I'm excited to have our little intro promo soundtrack now. Shout out to Blake Owens. If you're into hip hop, check him out. How's the week treating you?
Man, not too bad. Week's been going good. A little heat wave this weekend, but we got through it.
Yeah, man, it's been hot. It's been hot everywhere. I do want to do a quick summary of what we're going to cover today. So we'll talk about the market, of course. Really, we're going to do like highlights of things going on, kind of like some current events. Then we're going to talk about the NBA, of course, that's starting to pick back up. Jump right into the portfolios and the player bios. And we're going to wrap it up with some final thoughts, man. That sound good to you, Sperleezy?
Sounds good to me. Let's go.
Perfect. All right, so jumping right into the market, let's talk about commercial real estate delinquencies. So we're not starting on a bad note necessarily. There are some good things to talk about. But if you're on YouTube, you see a chart, the top 20 markets by delinquent balance. And, it was pretty shocking to see. I mean, Sperleezy, if you're looking at the report, I mean, you have like Minneapolis, for instance, 46.74% delinquency rate by delinquent balance, right? So they're up there. Syracuse, New York is at 69.10%. Yeah, Portland, 23%. Rochester, New York, 44%. Who else is pretty high?
Albany, 54%. It's not looking good for New York.
Man. So again, this is delinquent balance report, top 20 markets. But if you're listening on the podcast, as we always say, jump to YouTube and you can see the full list and the rates currently. So that's, not starting off on the greatest news, but, on a lighter note, we can click over to the next slide and we talk about leverage all the time when we talk about REITs compared to the private markets. So this next chart that you see, regardless of is debt to total assets. So we talk about leverage during challenging times like we're facing today. And you can see if you're tuned in, whether you're looking at the debt to book assets or debt to market assets, the leverage is really at the highest is at 55% or below, all the way, and it drops down below that in a lot of cases. So really the point here is as these delinquencies happen, and some people aren't paying their mortgages, but on the flip side, if the tenants aren't paying their rent, it looks like across the board, because there's lower leverage, they should be able to come out of this, especially the stronger balance sheets, be able to survive since they don't have as much debt. Now, you flip that to the private side. I just had a conversation today and with a broker out of Dallas, and they were talking about still being able to get private debt for 75, sometimes 80%, which, I mean, first, it's very difficult to fathom that they can still get that kind of debt on an asset, maybe because it's multifamily. But, we talked about it. And the main thing was the risk. Like, I was like, hey, we're in uncertain times. I don't want to put 80% debt on a property, although it can boost your returns from a cash perspective. It's very risky. And then the last good point, while we're in this pandemic, REITs have still maintained to raise capital. So in the capital markets, the total capital raised in the second quarter, including common and preferred equity as well as unsecured debt, was $30.9 billion. So you compare that's up 11% from first quarter and up 25% compared to a year ago. So even though we're experiencing a pandemic, in the capital markets, the REITs continue to raise capital. So that is
people still believe. They're giving
I
mean,
money. Long term, it goes back to long-term fundamentals. And I would argue, if you're not an analyst, there's a lot of analysts out there that you can follow. We want to simplify things to give you the macro outlook and the fundamentals, the building blocks of REITs and real estate. But if you think about it, there's a lot of solid REITs out there that are cheap, that are discounted. So you can buy them and hold long. And if you believe in the overall recovery in that particular property type, this is an opportunity for you.
Definitely.
And next in the news, so a lot of you will know I'm a fan of Robert De Niro, so I thought it was interesting to put him in the news today for our market update. So just like everyone else, kind of experiencing the pain of real estate in both the hotel and restaurant property types, Robert De Niro is an owner and investor of Nobu Restaurant and Greenwich Hotel as well. So Nobu lost $3 million in April and almost $2 million in May. So, and that's one of the locations in Manhattan. And Greenwich Hotel is a luxury hotel, almost $600 a night. So naturally, if people aren't traveling, the last one to recover is probably going to be that maybe that luxury hotel.
The luxury,
So, he's felt it from that perspective. But on an interesting note, his new film production company, they actually acquired a property, waterfront development site in Astoria for $72 million in February, so right before the pandemic. So, of course, they didn't plan that out, but I'm assuming they have a long-term strategy, so that hopefully won't impact them that much. But yeah, he's if you're a Robert De Niro fan, he's a real estate guy.
Wow, that's what. Have you seen what hotels are doing since COVID started?
So they were up to 44% occupancy. I think we talked about it. Was it maybe 2 episodes ago? But then they dropped again as the cases spiked again. So they were having some traction, and then you had cases again. So there's some challenges there still. But and then the last piece I wanted to bring up for our market news. Exciting news in the Philippines. So the Philippines SEC approved their first ever REIT. So if you have connections to the Philippines, live in the Philippines, are considering moving to the Philippines, they have their first REIT that their listing debut is scheduled for August 7th. And that'll be on the Philippine Stock Exchange. And January, the government, they adjusted their regulations to hopefully encourage more investment into real estate development and infrastructure in the Philippines. So I think this is just a start to more transactions and an actual REIT market in the Philippines.
That's awesome.
So yeah, man, that's all I have on my end. What's going on in the NBA world?
Well, get started with the NBA. We're about 2 weeks out from the restart that's going on with the bubble down in Orlando at Disney. We'll keep it brief today. We got a couple updates. It looks like 2 more players have added to the long list of players who have tested positive for COVID. We recently learned that Russell Westbrook and James Harden both have tested positive. They have not left for Orlando yet. They're still home in LA. But we're told that they're both doing great. They both should be fine prior to the season started. So I think they're getting tested. They're being quarantined, and then they will head over to Orlando. Once you enter the bubble, you have to stay in your room until you get 2 negative tests. So that's kind of what Kawhi Leonard's going through right now. I think he entered the bubble Saturday.
So he had it also?
No.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't have it, or at least hasn't been reported that he has it. He just has to get 2 negative tests before he can actually leave his hotel room and join his team. So they're taking double precaution. But like I said, James Harden, Russell Westbrook have added to the long list of names of Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, Christian Wood, Kevin Durant, Marcus Smart, Nikola Jokic, Malcolm Brogdon, Jabari Parker, Buddy Yield, Alex Lynn, Derek Jones, Spencer Dewindow, DeAndre Jordan. And then you had executives and owners like James Dolan, who tested positive, and then the coach of the Nuggets, Michael Malone, who's tested positive.
I don't know that I knew KD got it.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that he's not planning on playing, I don't think it made news a lot. But I want to say maybe like a month ago, he tested positive. But the NBA is taking the security of that bubble very seriously. Just as recent, I believe yesterday, you had a player from the Kings, Rashawn Holmes, who ordered food and met the delivery guy outside the bubble. So the fact that he went outside of the bubble, he has a 10-day quarantine in his room, where he needs to provide 2 negative tests again before he can join his team.
That's wild. I could see someone trying to tackle him before he reaches the exit. Like, don't do it.
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting to see who's going to follow the rules, who's not going to follow the rules, and what's going to happen if they do not follow the rules. But hopefully, all these players get healthy. Hopefully, James Harden and Russell Westbrook get healthy enough to join their teams to make a run.
Cool. Thank you for that update, man. It'll be interesting to see if the stars can't play. It goes back to our old conversation. Is there an asterisk next to the championship? If a star can't play and somebody else slides into and gets the ring.
Like I said, I've never seen an asterisk in the history of the NBA, so I personally don't see one this year. So we'll see what happens.
Cool. Well, thanks for that update. So are we jumping right into the competition?
Let's jump right in. I think we're going to start off with the guest portfolio's best performer today.
Yeah, so guest portfolio, could never pick it up, man. As far as the overall this week, so they did second best. All 3 of our portfolios lost. I got destroyed, but I set my players out because I knew the championship and the playoffs were coming up. So that's the only reason. So
Speaking of that, before you go any further, let's kind of break down what's happening with the season. We officially are starting playoffs this week, so I think we're ruling out the guest portfolio. Me and you are going to go head to head.
Yeah, we tried to let guest portfolio, come back, man. We really tried. We tried to be fair. We didn't want to boot anyone out too early, but that guest portfolio has never been able to really pick it up from the beginning. Got kind of hammered pretty early and just could never catch up. But right now, since the draft, they're up 5.9%, still in last place. You actually jumped to first. Again, because I sat my players out, to get ready. You jumped to first. So since the draft, you're up 9.38%.
Nice.
I'm up 7.04%. So I'm in second place right now. So like you said, the 2 of us, our championship week is this upcoming week in performance. The best performance of our portfolios just this week. So we're resetting at 0 essentially. The best performance this next week coming up. That's the winner going into the next episode, man. And that'll be the end of season 1 for Reap Ball. And then we're going to keep on going into the next season, not too far down the road. So we'll keep you posted on that. So the last update for this guest portfolio, their best performer this week is Giannis, tied to Equinix, EQIX, and that is a data center REIT. And we won't get into a lot of the technical stuff because, we've done a lot of that. So we'll get right into the REITs and that information. And feel free to ask questions at serve@reapball.com. That's serve@reapball.com. And we'll answer any questions in between any episodes if you have any, or comment on any of the platforms where you're listening to us. So Equinix is headquartered in Redwood City. They have a market value of $64.43 billion. They're a fairly large REIT, founded in 1998. They converted to a REIT in 2015. And they're actually their portfolio spans across 5 continents, 25 countries, and 55 markets. So if you're looking for a global data center REIT, this is a good option for you to consider to have global exposure. And they're in 18 of the largest 20 countries in the world, 18 of the largest 20 markets in the world. And they have a M&A strategy, so a merger and acquisition. We also talked about that. Merger is when you're joining with another company, almost like partners or joint venture. Acquisition is when you're buying a smaller entity to essentially allow yourself to scale quicker or reach a certain strategy a lot quicker by acquiring that existing company that you target. So they had a big merger in 2002, giving them exposure to China, Singapore, Japan, and Australia. And then 2007, they had a $2 billion European expansion. And then from 2010 to 2017, they tripled their data center portfolio.
Wow.
So major growth over 7 years. And they attribute their growth naturally just to the, increase in the internet, right? Cloud computing, Internet of Things, and big data. So the demand is there, and we talked about 5G, so it's not going to stop anytime soon as far as the growth potential. They did slow down a bit during the pandemic, but they still project revenue growth between 6 to 8% in 2020. And then so the property, an example, and the picture's up right now, is in Barcelona. It's the International Business Exchange Data Center. It's powered, which is really cool, it's powered 100% renewable energy. I really like that. And it's 19,439 square feet. And it's industry leading average uptime. They have a track record of greater than 99.9999%. So you can bet that most likely you're not going to have any downtime when you're talking about your internet connection or your data exchange and things like that. So very reliable REIT and very reliable data center. So talk to me a little bit about, Giannis, league going into the playoffs, and how you think he'll do compared to Equinix.
Definitely. I mean, you mentioned how Equinix is a global REIT. Well, we have a global basketball player here in Giannis. He's 6'11", came in the league in 2013 as this little skinny 18-year-old kid who played basketball for maybe 4 years coming out of Greece. And what he's become now is the 2019 NBA MVP and one of the front runners for the 2020 NBA MVP title. So he's definitely done what every basketball player's dream is. I mean, he started in the NBA, and every year he got better. To where now he's putting up double doubles. One of the leading scorers in the league. So 4-time All-Star. What do we have? 3-time NBA All-Team, 2-time All Defensive Team. So I mean, Giannis has done nothing but been great and improved. As a matter of fact, he was once the NBA Most Improved Player. So I mean, he's literally achieved every single thing you can over the years, and now he's one of the best players in the league today.
Man, I think it's crazy that he started around 15. I mean, when you talk about finding your purpose, like there's no other reason why he is in the league other than finding his purpose. That was what he was meant to do. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Like, how many people do you know, even, with the size, tall and everything, can start at 15 and then be a professional athlete a few years later?
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, and just like a couple other people we're going to talk today, like Drew Holiday, he's currently got 2 brothers in the league as well. Another one on the Bucks with him and one on the Lakers.
Crazy. So yeah, thanks for that. The lowest performer this week for this portfolio was UDR Apartments. So they're a residential REIT. And this is a good example. We have this is entertainment, informational, just to like feed you different examples of REITs. This really just is the tip of the iceberg in our weekly newsletter that gives more detail on each REIT and really covers all the available REITs out there. But UDR is an example, right? So as of close of the stock market last week, it was around $36, a little bit more than $36 a share. Now, their market value is $10.67 billion. They're headquartered in Highland Ranch, Colorado, so not far from Denver. But for $36 or so a share, they have approximately 150 apartment units and 150 apartment communities and 52,000 apartment units. So when you talk about diversification, you talk about a strategy that's broader. We've talked about other REITs, and we're going to talk about one today in industrial that's very specialized in their market. UDR is a little broader. They were established in 1972. Their portfolio is across 21 markets. They're more of the luxury product, right? So IRT is more of that. We talked about IRT is more of that Southeast and Midwest market. more B and C assets, kind of what Kent, you and I target in Dallas and Atlanta. And then the luxury apartments are really your Class A, right? So UDR is going to focus more on that. The property we have today, the picture is the Arbory in Portland, Oregon. So studios start at $1,300 a month, 540 square feet. They have stainless steel appliances, quart countertops, so really clean look. Some of the amenities are bike storage, clubhouse, fitness center. They have a yoga room, pet wash station, rooftop lounge with barbecue and lawn games. So really just entertainment for the tenants to connect as well. Really like the property and I mean, it's clean. What are your thoughts, Ken? Would you live there?
Yeah, no, it definitely looks nice. I'm sure it's one of those places where that's got a doorman. So, love it when people open doors for you.
Yeah, do you? Hopefully you say thank you. Hopefully you say thank you.
Definitely.
And assigned to UDR Apartments, ladies and gentlemen, we have the official Dame Lillard.
Dame Dollar. Oakland's finest, the town, Mr. Damian Lillard.
The current AI for me.
Dame and shout out to Dame for getting the NBA 2K cover.
That's right.
He's one of the players chosen for the upcoming year. I think you got Zion. I know they're doing a Kobe edition. You got Dame. I forget who else. I think there's a couple other players. I think they typically choose around 4 every year who's going to be on the cover. But Dame's coming out of Weber State, small school. No one really recruited him coming out of high school. But he's always been a scorer. This year he's putting up 28.9 points a game, 4.3 rebounds, and 7.8 assists. So that's coming from your lead scorer on the team, 5-time All-Star. Dame was Rookie of the Year, 4-time All-NBA team. But Dame's one of those players that throughout his career he's been snubbed a lot. I mean, he's playing in that point guard, that guard group that's heavy in the league. You have James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Steph Curry, all those guys out west, which kind of puts Dame a little lower on the list when it comes to making the All-Star team. So I think there's a couple of years where he should have made it that he didn't. But you got so many good names up there that it's hard to decide who's it going to be. But like I said, Dame's always been on Portland. He's one of those players that's currently says he doesn't want to leave. But like we all know
is he gonna retire in Portland?
Well, I mean, like I said, right now he's saying he doesn't want to leave, but we heard Kyrie said that. We heard KD say that. So, I mean, there's a long list of players who say what you want to hear. So we'll see what happens as his career goes along. I mean, they have players to help. They got CJ up there with him, another great all-star guard. So we'll see what they can put around him.
I was going to say, I feel like they need one more player, man. Like they're never really, and I want to see Portland like in a final. Like if I feel like they always have a consistent, duo, right? And then they have, players around them, but like just one more, just big time. They need something else. Else.
Yeah, I mean they picked up a big name. We'll see how he performs in these playoffs and see if they can get in. The Carmelo Anthony is on Portland now, so.
But Carmelo is obviously I love Carmelo, but at this stage, I wonder at this stage of his career, is he like will he contribute to get them over the hump?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. They're getting their center back from injury. So, I mean, they're putting together a squad. They're currently outside looking in. They're tied for 9th place right now, so they're trying to get that 8th seed. I think they're like a half a game or a game back. So they actually got to come out and play these 8 games to try to advance to the playoffs.
Gotcha. All right, well, cool, man. I always appreciate talking about Dame, man. Like I said, I'm a fan of him. I just like the underdog, and of course he was an underdog by playing Weber State, underdog by being in Portland and in the West. Like, so that's why I really have been a big fan of his out of the West. So let's hop over to your portfolio, man. So you actually
the champ,
the current for the week for the first time. For the first time, I need to change the caption on our summary for the podcast that says I'm in second, you're in first. And it would stink that you pull it at the very end, right? So we still have next week, but we'll be head to head next week. But your portfolio, you had top performer Bradley Beal at guard, and he was associated with Omega Healthcare Investors. So Omega Healthcare was your number one REIT this past week. Actually have over an 8% dividend. We talked about dividends, and we said you don't chase the dividend yield or anything, but a lot of times, depends. If they can pay it out, it's a nice cash flow to receive, but sometimes, you get that dividend and it may be a little bit riskier REIT, and then, you may or may not get that dividend. So it's important to kind of check the history, how consistently they've been paying their dividends and things like that, and that'll give you a better feel on will they keep it up or not, and to what degree. So Omega Healthcare, they're a triple net skilled nursing and assisted living facility REIT. So we talked about triple net. Triple net just essentially means the tenant is paying as if they're owning the property. They're paying tax, insurance, and all the maintenance. So the owner doesn't really pay for any of that, right? The tenant's paying for all of that. So it's a lot more conservative, just steady cash flow, typically longer term leases. You're getting this steady income by having it triple net and having the tenant take care of all the expenses. They are across the U.S., 40 states, as well as the U.K. So they partner with operators. And so operators are essentially the guys and the ladies who find properties. These operators, for instance, specialize in healthcare, real estate development. They maybe find a property that's existing healthcare, or maybe it's a space that can be converted to healthcare. And then they go and do their job as a specialist in healthcare. They go and develop it into the facility, or maybe an existing healthcare, and they just need a partner to inject capital in it. And that's how, Omega Healthcare may partner with them as almost like a joint venture and a capital partner. So they have 70 operator partnerships, 966 facilities, again, 40 states across the UK. And the property we're going to show today that we have up is actually across the pond in the UK, one of my favorite towns, London. This is actually in Tottenham. So if you're into football, Tottenham is definitely a dominant team every year. But so Peregrine House is the property that we're going to talk about today. So they care for residents with disabilities who are 40 years old or older. And so they have various assistants and nurses and things like that, and physical therapy, different therapists. They also take on residents with mental health needs, have various social activities for engagement to connect the residents, as well as including art activities, fitness options, and various amenities to make sure that people, still feel at home and it doesn't feel as much like, a hospital and things like that. So I like what they're doing in Peregrine House. And again, that's tied to Bradley Beal. So you want to give Bradley Beal a quick shout out?
Yeah, I mean, Bradley Beal is kind of similar to Dame. He's snubbed a lot as well, but he quietly put up 30 points a game this year with John Wall sitting out. So he's definitely one of the top players in the league, especially for his position, and definitely in the East. But regarding the bubble and the restart, he actually has chosen to not play. Wow. I think they linked it to an injury, but he was having second thoughts this entire time. I mean, Washington is no one even knows why Washington's invited, to be honest, to the bubble. I mean, they're so far out from making the playoffs that they literally have to win all 8, and every other team has to somehow lose. I don't think that's possible. But
I was going to say that's tough if they have a chance, and then your star player isn't playing. He removes himself when they have a chance. But if they're far out, he probably is man, the likelihood of us actually
Yeah.
running.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's a chance that these players can get hurt. I mean, they haven't played basketball in so many months that
On that
there's,
level, right?
yeah,
To that.
exactly. I mean, someone can pull a hamstring easily. No matter how many weights you lift or how many times you're jogging on the treadmill, it's got nothing on an NBA basketball game. So
Yeah.
those muscles can easily get tight. So yeah, he's decided to sit out. But like I said, young man from St. Louis, went to University of Florida. Two-time NBA All-Star. He was Gatorade Player of the Year coming out of high school. He averaged 14 points as a rookie, so he's averaging 30 now. And he's started for the Wizards since day one. So you can just see his progression every year. How he's able to get up to career highs of 30 points a game, career high in assists, 6 assists a game. He really stepped up, being that John Wall's been out the whole year.
Cool. Awesome, man. Thank you for that. We'll hop right into Public Storage is the worst performer on your team this week. Mm-hmm. So, we won't hop into storage too much. We've talked about it a few times. We cover it more in depth in the newsletter. They have a dividend of 3.85, and that's Public Storage, ticker symbol PSA. And in case I didn't mention Omega Healthcare Investors, their ticker symbol was OHI. So Public Storage is actually the world's largest largest owner, operator, and developer in self-storage facilities. Most people, if you're in the U.S., have seen at some point the orange sign or building for Public Storage. This particular one that they believe is based in New York, but they're all over the U.S. So they have almost 2,500 facilities in the U.S., Canada, and Europe, and over 1 million customers. So again, the world's largest self-storage. They were founded in 1992. They had 1,000 locations in 1989. They went public in 1995 when they merged with Storage Equities. And then they also own about a third of Shurgard storage centers, which you may have also seen, a smaller storage center. And the property, like I said, this one showing on the screen on YouTube is a facility in New York. So I won't get too much into it. I mean, we all know self-storage. We talked about it quite a bit during this time. Storage is one of those players like data centers and industrial that, is doing okay during this time.
Mm-hmm, definitely. He's connected. Public Storage is connected to DeMar DeRozan. So let's talk a little bit about him. Out of Compton, California, went to college at USC.
LA, baby.
Definitely. Drafted by the Toronto Raptors, and that's really where he made his name before getting traded recently to the Spurs for Kawhi Leonard. I mean, it's kind of a sad story. DeRozan and the Raptors have made it to the Eastern Conference Finals so many times, just to lose to the LeBron as the Cavs or the Heat, then to get traded. LeBron moving from the East to the West, and then Toronto's able to sneak in and win an NBA title.
Yeah,
Shout
so
out
people were saying it was because they needed Kawhi instead of him, but like really to your point, the competition changed, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that
to get him there.
Exactly. I mean, if LeBron had moved earlier, who knows what Toronto would have done with DeRozan. I mean, especially since Kawhi has left Toronto, and Toronto's still top 3 team in the league out of the East. So I mean, they have a stacked team, and Kawhi was just that finishing piece.
Yeah.
But speaking of DeRozan, we can go a little bit more. 4-time All-Star, All-NBA team twice. He's got a gold medal. Like I said, recently traded to the Spurs last year. His production's dropped a little bit down to 22 points a game. But I think that's just the system that he's in. His highest peak in Toronto, he was averaging 27. So it's definitely a different system. But he's still bringing in 5 rebounds, 5 assists a game. But speaking of DeRozan, kind of wanted to touch base on a topic that I don't think a lot of people are talking about this NBA bubble. going into with the mental health of the players that are in the bubble. I mean, recently DeMar DeRozan has come out and said he's battling depression. You have on top of that Kevin Love, who says he battles anxiety. The NBA is actually working with the Players Association to include in the next collective bargaining agreement that players are allowed to reach out to doctors for mental wellness that aren't associated with the team. I think a lot of people in the past were scared to talk to doctors that were associated with the team because, you know, you're afraid that information is somehow going to get passed on, even though it's not supposed to. So they've actually added into the next collective bargaining agreement, or at least working on it, that they can talk to doctors of their choosing outside of the NBA partnership. But like I said, the mental wellness that's going on in the bubble, it's going to be interesting to see how players adapt to really not being able to go anywhere. You're afraid that, you know, someone might get cabin fever and be like, you know what, I'm out of here, and run out the hotel. So it's gonna be interesting to see. What do you think about it?
No, I think it's very important, man. Like you and I have talked a little bit about just like my focus on neuroscience and trying to understand how the brain works and how we work and things like that. So I think it's super important to have people who are on a major platform talk about mental health and talking about and being able to feel confident and comfortable enough to talk about their challenges, right? I think it then allows other people to feel comfortable, you know, talking, especially during this time. Like it's not, we're humans are meant to interact and connect, and like
Exactly.
and going through what we're going through right now, I think even folks who've never experienced any issues are now like, man, the walls are closing in. Like I'm ready to, you know, be out and go through my routines and talk to people. So I think it's, you know, I commend them for stepping up and talking about it. I think it's great to understand, you know, if you need help, to seek help. Or if you don't feel like you need help, but you just want to learn more about how to be your optimal self, right? Like, again, the neuroscience stuff I think is interesting. Meditation, exercise, yoga, like all these different things to really, you know, be more centered. Reading up on emotional intelligence, all those things are fascinating to me. So, you know, I'm glad you brought that up. Like it's just as important as this REIT stuff and just as important as the NBA updates. So thanks for that.
No, definitely.
So for the lowest performer this past week, I'll quickly go over National Health Investors. That's ticker symbol NHI for you, Sperlisi, and they're a healthcare REIT. I'm sorry, that's for me. I apologize.
Yeah.
And National Health Investors, NHI Healthcare on my side. So that's Drew Holiday, who's a flex player for me. And National Health Investors, they have roughly a 7.6% dividend. So again, high dividend, but naturally, you know, it has to be your total return that you're looking at. So I'll jump into National Health Investors. They're headquartered outside of Nashville, Tennessee. They're incorporated in 1991. So they invest again in partners and operators, right? So they may not do the hands-on themselves through the whole process of sourcing and finding a deal, actually doing the renovations, managing it day in and day out. They will partner with operators who are already in the market doing it. So they have operating partners throughout the U.S. They're across 34 states, 242 properties. They have 161 senior housing facilities, 76 skilled nursing homes, 3 hospitals, 2 medical offices. And the property that you're showing on our YouTube channel is Sagewood out of Phoenix, Arizona. So it's a senior independent living community. So really the difference is in the name, right? There's more independence, and it's essentially like your own apartment. The residents can typically move freely compared to, like, say, an assisted living or a nursing home or things like that. So beautiful property.
Beautiful property.
Yeah, I mean, they have the pool.
Definitely got that Arizona feel to it.
Definitely. I feel like that's the right climate once you retire and you get a little older. Like, that's like a top place for retirement as well. So Sagewood out of Phoenix, Arizona, the demand for senior living is not going away. You're seeing more and more players in that space. So I like the facility. I like Sagewood. And we'll keep an eye on national health investors, but they are tied to, we've talked about Drew a couple of times, I think, but Drew and his siblings, but talk about Drew a little bit and what
Drew Holiday was drafted, back in 2009, first round, pick 17. He's coming from Chatsworth, California, a little north of Los Angeles. Went to school at UCLA. Left after his freshman year. He's always been one of those guys he's a solid veteran in the league. He's been one of those role players that have been really, really good. He's currently over there on the Pelicans trying to help them get into the playoffs. He's been to the All-Star team once. NBA. He's made the NBA All Defensive Team, high school Gatorade Player of the Year. So kind of like we said about Giannis, he also has two brothers in the league playing basketball as well. So the whole family affair is always a great thing. The fact that their parents did something right when all three can make it to the NBA, definitely put them in a position to win. But yeah, Drew Holiday's one of those guys that whatever team he goes on, he's always performed, and he's always played well. He's been that glue, I guess, that keeps the players together. I mean, great defender. He can put up points. He's averaging 19 points this year, 5 rebounds, 7 assists. So, I mean, he's a baller. Not much more I can say about him. He's a baller.
For sure, yeah, and the genes are real in the Holiday family, man. And
definitely,
they have at least. He's also married to an athlete, right? Soccer player, women's national team. Okay. And I believe they definitely have one child, maybe 2. So those genes are good. Athletes in the making, man.
Definitely.
The next, he actually had an interesting story about his wife. Is it Lauren Holiday from the women's soccer team? She actually wrote an article during the whole social justice movement and what they've experienced as an interracial couple. So it was interesting. Top performer, thanks for that. That was the bottom performer. Top performer is Rexford Industrial, of course, an industrial REIT, REXR, and they are where I am in Southern California. So you can't knock them for that, right? And Spurleezy's home market as well. So they are a $5.17 billion market value currently, again, headquartered out of Southern California. We talked about broader strategies and more narrow investment thesis. So this is as specialized as you can get. Rexford focused just on Southern California industrial. So over time, we've talked again about IRT in the multifamily space in the Southeast, in the Midwest, across the U.S. We've talked about UDR. That's a broader strategy. We've talked about Essex. That was also multifamily on the West Coast only. Now we're talking about Rexford, that is industrial only in Southern California. So they own 223 properties, approximately 28 million rentable square feet. They manage a third-party manager, an additional 20 properties and 1 million square feet doing that. They've been active during the pandemic. So they announced in June that they acquired a $14.7 million acquisition, and then they had another $73 million acquisition just a few days ago, recently in July.
Wow.
So they are moving, industrial, again, we've talked about it, the last mile, on the rise in e-commerce, the rise in online shopping, the need to be able to get your product as quick as you can, next fastest than you physically going to a retail store, right? So because of that, industrial is going to continue to be hot. And Southern California is where the greatest demand in industrial is. So it makes sense that Rexford's right here. And Southern California has the largest regional economy. So if you think about it, largest regional economy, largest demand in industrial. I don't think Rexford is going anywhere anytime soon. Their rental rates in Southern California are more than 60% higher than the next 10 largest markets. So you talk about cash flow and rent, they're able to collect it, right? And it's scarce supply. So the increased demand, like we've said, if there's a scarce supply and an increased demand, your vacancy is going to be low. In some of their submarkets in Southern California, they have less than 1% vacancy in some of their properties.
Wow.
So, I mean,
impressive.
Yeah, no vacancy issues, no lack of demand, of course. So, as far as, industrial, of course, very important right now and doing well during this time. Southern California, great market for industrial. And the last interesting piece I'll say on Rexford, a diversity move. They just hired a female CFO, Laura Clark. So congratulations to Laura Clark for her new role. I always love to see the diversity play. And then their property we're going to talk about just briefly is 1601 Mission Boulevard in Pomona, California. And it was built in 1952, but they've obviously renovated it into 751,000 square feet. And their whole play is just acquiring vintage assets and renovating, creating value through renovations, through increased cash flow, and enterprise value. So that's their whole strategy. So I said a lot about Rexford, but talk to me a little bit about Lowry, who's I always want to say Mike Lowry whenever I see Lowry.
Mike Lowry.
Yeah.
Kyle Lowry, out of Villanova, 2006 first round pick. He's slowly becoming the greatest player to ever put on a Toronto Raptors jersey. I know that's a bold statement, but let me explain.
I was going to say, are we not counting Kawhi's short stay?
Oh no, I mean you can't even mention Kawhi, unfortunately. It's really between DeMar DeRozan, another player we talked about today, and Kyle Lowry.
Will it be Sycam at some point? Sycam, right?
It could be, but just last year, Lowry passed DeRozan for all-time leading scorer in the postseason, which is huge. I mean, you got to be there in order to score points in the postseason. Six-time All-Star, three-time All-NBA team. He's got a gold medal. But he's getting up there. He's currently 34. So I mean, he's definitely at the end of his career. He was drafted by Memphis. He played in Houston for a little while, but he's been on Toronto going on, I think, 7 years now. So outside of DeRozan, there's not too many players that have been on Toronto that long. So he's definitely making his way as being the best. What
about Vince Carter?
Vince wasn't. I mean, Vince was there, I think, 4 or 5 years. Definitely. He put in his time. From my understanding, Vince and Toronto didn't part ways in the best ways. I think they're better now. So it'll be interesting to see how they react to his retirement. But Kyle Lowry, he's a solid point guard in this league. I think I don't think he gets as much respect as he deserves, but I mean, he's put up points everywhere he's gone. He's been an all-star everywhere he's gone. Anything that Toronto has done over the last couple of years, Kyle Lowry has played a big part in that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think like his I don't know if it's because of the market or if it's because of the personality. He's not as out there, like mainstream in front of everyone like some of these other players, but he's obviously a star and a baller. So congrats to Lowry for all your accolades. And then, I think that handles the portfolios, man. So we are officially retiring the guest portfolio. We're going into this championship week, just you and me, Spurleezy. It's funny. I'm glad it worked out that way. That'd be super awkward if it was like one of us didn't make it. So what do we talk about next week? But no, I'm glad it worked out that way. So let's the last couple minutes. Let's talk about your final thoughts, man. I'll let you hop into it, and then I'll go after that.
Okay. Well, lately, last couple of weeks, what I like to do is I like to outline either an NBA great or a current NBA player. Give them the roses while they can smell it, pour them a shot while they can drink it. It's great to pay homage to careers that people have had. Today, I want to highlight Mr. Dominique Wilkins, one of the all-time greats in the NBA. Career averages of 24 points, 6 rebounds. Yeah, exactly. A career averages of little under 25 points, 6.7 rebounds, 2.5 assists. But if you look at these 3 consecutive seasons that he had in the 80s, on a team where he didn't really have much help, but averaged 30 points, 29 points, 30 points respectively, all over 50-win seasons. Dominique Wilkins was the man. Slam dunk champion, 9-time All-Star, 7-time All-NBA team. He was a scoring champ. Prior to finishing his career in Orlando, he actually went over to Europe and won a EuroLeague championship before he came back to NBA. So, I mean, they say he doesn't have any titles, but that's the one title that he does have when he went over in Euro. So shout out to Dominique. Respect your game. Unfortunately, you played in an era where you had to go up against Jordan a lot. So, but Dominique was the man when he was on the court.
No, definitely. I love his dunks, man. And I mean, there's some good memories with Dominique Wilkins. So good call there. And I will wrap it up with my final thoughts. Again, if you haven't already, sign up for the newsletter if you want more in-depth weekly coverage on a REIT of the week, as well as REIT, current events and real estate current events each week. Again, we're doing it. Our goal is to do it the least complex and complicated. We don't want it to be an overwhelming experience for you as an investor. We want to be more simplified building blocks for you to be able to DIY, do it yourself, right? And feel empowered versus us trying to, get you to understand all of the details of analyzing a REIT and things like that. We're going to take you on just macro level, why it makes sense, each property type, and when it makes sense and what to think about. So we want it to be an enjoyable experience, not an intimidating one. So consider that at member.readball.com. And then you would get your newsletter the following week after you sign up. Again, 60-day money-back guarantee. So you get 8 letters to check out before deciding if you want to continue going. And then for my official final thoughts and shout out and recognition, I have to commend the REIT CEOs who stepped up and made an official statement on social justice recently. I have a list of them. And it's, real estate, we continue to talk about it on different calls, and it's important to talk about it here. It's lack of diversity in real estate, and that needs to change. There's lack of real estate entrepreneurs. I should say lack of diverse real estate entrepreneurs. There's lack of diversity in the REIT space. There's lack of diverse real estate investors, which is why we're forming REIT Ball to get more people involved at affordable real estate, investment vehicles through REITs. So there's just that lack of diversity on top of everything that's going on in the U.S. right now. So the list of folks who did make a statement, REIT CEOs, are below. Digital REIT CEO Bill Stein, American Tower, Tom Bartlett, Avalon Bay, Timothy Naughton, Duke Realty, James Conner, Crown Castle CEO James J. Brown, Extra Space Storage Joe Margolis, who was actually CEO of the year. Remember, we talked about that. Invitation Home, Dallas Tanner, IRIT CEO Mark Decker, JBG Smith CEO Matthew Kelly, Regency Centers, Lisa Palmer, RLJ Lodging Trust CEO Leslie Hale, Black woman CEO in the lodging REIT space. That's impressive. Ventus, Deborah Cafaro, Welltower, Tom DeRosa, Cousin, and then the final few made just company-wide statements, and that's Cousins Properties, Health Peak Properties, Simon Property Group, and Taubman Company. So again, thank you, shout out, commend, and recognize all of you for making a statement. We'd love to have you on REIT Ball sometime.
Definitely.
We appreciate the stance that you have on social justice, diversity, and things like that. So those are my final words. I appreciate everyone listening this week. I'll hand it off to Spurleezy to get us out of here.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. Tune in next week. Like we said, we'll have the finals of what's going on. As far as me and Mark, we'll see whose portfolio wins. Thank you guys for tuning in. Have a great week.
Keep the same energy, yeah. Keep the same energy, keep the same energy, yeah. Keep the same energy, You ain't gotta like me, no. You ain't gotta like me, no.